Witnesses say the shooter, 34-year-old former Navy reservist Aaron Alexis, was aiming at helpless workers down on the first floor from a perch a few stories higher. And authorities say he did gain entry to the Navy Yard with a valid pass he had from his job as an hourly subcontractor. And his security clearance for that job was reportedly approved just this summer. Back to you in New York.
All right, Peter, live at the Navy Yard. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Peter. Well, you know, certainly this topic's already taken a turn again, left making this about gun control.
Just look at the cover of the New York Daily News today. Same gun, different sleigh.
Right.
It shows this AR-15 right there. What's interesting about the AR-15, they found it with this guy, but they don't know whether or not he brought it in. They do at this point believe that he went in with a shotgun, but then it sounds like he shot a security guy and then took his handgun. And there's a possibility that the AR-15 was actually from somebody inside.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of questions. Number one, how do you get through there? I mean, here you need a secure ID. It seems like he had it, but is there a metal detector there? Being that it's a military complex, doesn't seem to have been the case. But once he did get in, that is the story. Now, you were talking about Elizabeth a second ago. What is it? Is this about gun control, or is this about a guy that has a history of drinking a lot, playing video games a lot, and a few shooting incidents? For example, it didn't take long for Jesse Jackson to write, "Aren't we all to blame for Monday's tragic shooting? Our addiction to violence coupled with our access to guns." Senator Dianne Feinstein, this is renewing her call for new gun law control because of the deadly shooting. When will enough be enough? Congress must stop shirking its responsibility and resume a thoughtful debate.
I think something that happens often in a situation as tragic as this is that we start to spread blame where possibly it doesn't belong, right? I think we all know where the blame truly belongs, and that would be right in Alexis's hands.
He also has a history, not only, that's a good point, as of course the mayor brought up, but you talk about this guy's background as we look into it. He's got a friend who said, yeah, he had an obsession with video games, shooting video games. In fact, he would come over and he'd be playing so long, these video games, these shooting games, we'd have to give him dinner. We'd feed him while he continued to stay on them. A little bit later, Dr. Keith Ablow will talk about, is there a relationship between shooting video games and the way you act in real life?
Well, and are more people susceptible? Are more people maybe more susceptible than others to playing video games? Is there a link between a certain age group or demo in 20 to 34-year-old men, perhaps, that are playing these video games, and then their violent actions? We have yet to find out.
Well, unfortunately, it seems like every time something bad like this happens, we look at, is there a connection between video games and the shooter? Well, take a look at some people who were described as addicted to video games from Columbine High School. Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, the Virginia Tech shooter, the Arizona shooter, Jared Lee Lofner, that Norway shooter, Anders Bering, I think he shot 77 people, the Aurora shooter, James Holmes, the Sandy Hook shooter, Adam Lanza. They're all described as essentially being addicted to video games. Dr. Keith Ablow, last time he was on the program talking about this, he said that these games, in many cases, need a warning, simply so people know that they can be addictive and psychologically damaging.
Yeah, a lot of people do it, have absolutely no problem, and I believe there is warning on a lot of these games. Isn't there for adult content only?
What about frequency testing? How often has this game been played? Maybe there's some sort of, and I'm not one to say get in there and monitor everything, but if this indeed is a strong link, right, to mass killings, then why aren't we looking at frequency of purchases per person, and also how often they're playing and how many times? Maybe they time out after a certain hour.
You go to your room.
On this.
Well, it's all interesting stuff. Keep in mind, if there was an age cutoff, as was suggested with Adam Lanza and kids, this guy's 35 years old, 34 years old, so it wouldn't necessarily apply.